Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Write My Master's Thesis with Me. This episode is going to be a lot longer than what I anticipate the other ones will be, just because I want to kind of talk about my overall goals, where I got the idea, basically. So for those who don't know, I am currently doing my master's degree at McGill University, sociology. I have a bachelor in sociology as well and a minor in sexuality studies. I posted a poll in my story a couple weeks ago asking people if they would be interested in seeing that and learning about this topic with me and to see the progress that I'm making. And over 50 of you said that you would be interested. So thank you. And hopefully this is a cool thing that we get to do together. So my research interests surround race, gender, sexuality, disability, and online identity formation. So how do people create who they are online? How do we feel when we're online? And the bigger question being, who do we become once we are online? I wrote my undergrad thesis on the relationship that young women with reduced mobility have with Instagram and how they navigate and experience nightclub participation as host spaces for expression of their sexuality and authenticity. So are nightclubs and is Instagram a good place for disabled women to feel whole and authentically who they are? Also, are those spaces good to be sexual beings? Obviously, that topic touches gender, sexuality, disability, and online identity formation. And this research on the incel community touches issues relating to race, gender, sexuality, and also online identity formation. So before we get into the more like researchy part of it, I thought I would also touch on why I decided to do my master's thesis on the incel community. A little like story time moment. So many years ago, 6 years ago, when I was 20, I was dating this guy, and I remember telling him that I was kind of interested in the incel community. Now, mind you, that was in like 2018, and so it was a while ago, but still not that long ago. For social context of this conversation, I asked him if he knew what they were. He told me that incels were actually not a real thing and that they were basically an urban legend created by angry, misandrist feminists who had no empathy for men with mental illness issues. And obviously, we know that is not true. In 2018, one of the first incel shootings had already happened. The incel community was already pretty big on Reddit and other platforms. I remember being quite shocked by that answer. And even if I don't speak to that man anymore, who am I if not eternally dedicated to proving an anti-feminist wrong? Nothing. So that is kind of why I'm here. Over the years, this interest has always stayed. It's always been something that I was very interested in, and there hasn't been that much research, academic research that is, on the intersection of race with that community. And so there's definitely a huge gap to still research when it comes to that. My research question for this research is, how is Black masculinity constructed in the incel community? So, in other words, what that means is, what do incels think of Black men? Now, that question encompasses three different questions. What do incels think of Black men who are not incels? So, just Black men in general. How do non-Black incels see Black incels? So, they're brothers in inceldom, if you will. And then finally, how do Black incels view their own masculinity? These are all questions that I'm looking to answer with my research. Master's theses vary in length. Some can be between 100 and 150 pages, sometimes more. But if you're aiming for a direct publication, which is what I'm aiming for, then you want to stick to a more article-length paper. So between 15 and 30 pages. In my case, that's going to be most likely 30 pages. If you're thinking about going to grad school in sociology or in political science or other like social sciences, but aren't really sure if this is for you, or if just like original research in general is for you, I'm really hoping that this can be a cool tool to use. If you're starting grad school soon, and you're looking for more information or like kind of guidance, obviously I'm myself a student. I finished my first year in the spring, but I've done, like I said, original research at the undergrad level. So this is my second round at original research. I think maybe I can share a thing or two. So the next bit I want to touch on now is some tips that I have on how to choose your master's topic or your research topic. You want to choose a topic that you're very sure about, that you're very passionate about, because you're going to be reading about this, writing about this, talking about this, arguing with people about this. You're going to have to present at different stages of your research as well. And so you need to be very comfortable talking about these issues. Make sure also that nobody has done research on your exact topic. It might sound obvious, but you would be surprised. So what that means realistically is going through all of the pages of Google Scholars, including some master's or PhD theses that might have been written by other students around the world already, because you don't know if those students eventually will want to publish this work. So you're just going to scroll. You're going to write key terms related to the topic that you're interested in and just go by and click on everything and make sure that, again, this is not work that is already out there. Now, on the other side of that, you also don't want to choose something that's so obscure that you really struggle finding literature that's going to be holding up your topic. So when you're writing your lit review, if you have no literature that is related to the topic that you're researching, that's also going to be an issue. Now is the part where we get into the juicy stuff, I guess, and we talk about what is the incel community. I'm going to go more in depth when it comes to the literature in the next episode, where I'm talking specifically on the literature that is related to my topic. Today is just going to be more of a broad definition, what people already know, what you might already know. And if you're not at all knowledgeable about this topic, then this will be new information. But this is essentially the information that is not really going to be in my research because of how foundational it is, if that makes sense. So what most people know about the incel community is that it's an online community made up of mostly men. Data that we have so far estimates that the majority of the members are between the ages of 18 to 30, and those men are celibate involuntarily, which means that they would like to have sex or engage in romantic relationships, but cannot. Involuntary celibate being where the name comes from. Now, the other distinctive factor is the idea that the members see themselves as being celibate, specifically because of their physical appearance, and specifically because they deem themselves to be unattractive because of diverse types of factors like being short, fat, not muscular, non-white, or having a bone structure that's deemed unattractive. Some of the academic research that we have already on the incel community has demonstrated that their main beliefs include women being fundamentally evil, males as being oppressed, as well as the legitimization of violence against women. These beliefs exist in the context of the sexual market, which they believe is controlled by women who reject them because of their physical appearance. Obviously, those beliefs are quite alarming, and this is even more so important because a 2023 study found that around 70% of young men have already been in contact with ideologies like that, which are very popular in the manosphere. Originally, the term incel was coined by a young woman named Alana, who in 1997 wanted to create an online space for people who had little to no sexual experience or people who had dated in the past but currently were unable to do so. This might be a shock to some of you because in 2024, the term incel has such a heavily negative connotation, and so the origin of that term has been pretty much erased. Today, being an incel is mostly associated with loneliness at best and terrorism at worst. One of the most famous incel killers is Elliot Rogers, who in May 2014 killed 6 people and injured 14 in a stabbing and shooting spree in Isla Vista, California. Before taking his own life, Roger, a mixed-race, half-Asian, half-white 22-year-old, posted a retribution video to his YouTube channel and emailed a 141-page autobiographical document called My Twisted World to almost 24 people he knew. The document recounts his upbringing as the son of a Hollywood filmmaker, his struggles with mental health, and his deep-rooted loathing of women, fueled by his intense frustration over his virginity. In the final section of his manifesto, Roger declares, "I am the true victim of all this. I am the good guy." Today, Roger is seen as a saint by members of the incel community, often referred to as Saint Elliot or the Supreme Gentleman. A decade after his attack and suicide, it is not rare to see incels use Rogers' pictures as their own profile pictures on diverse websites. His initials, ER, are now a synonym for the act of committing a mass shooting or killing spree. Some members even capitalizing the letters E and R next to each other in random words in a way to pay him homage in their daily interaction on diverse incel websites. One of Elliot Rogers' goals was to inspire and encourage men to follow in his footsteps, goal that became reality a few years later. In 2018, Alec Minassian drove a van into a busy Toronto commercial street, killing 11 people and wounding 16. Before his attack, he posted on Facebook, "The incel rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys. All hail the supreme gentleman, Elliot Rodger." Minassian was then sentenced to life in prison in July 2022. Incels have also retroactively claimed mass killers whose manifestos or online presence predated the formation of organized incel forums such as George Sodini, who killed 3 women in 2009 in an LA gym, and Quebec's very own anti-feminist Marc Lépine, who in 1989 killed 14 female students who studied at the Polytechnique School of Engineering because they were women. In 2017, the very popular incel subreddit, which had around 40,000 members, was permanently banned for incitation to hate and violence and as containing violent content. Today, incels congregate on public forums and private chat rooms. Content created by individual members can be found on YouTube and on TikTok. And this content is very diverse, from asking other members to rate their personal appearance to random conversation starters about various topics, dating dynamics, or other conversations surrounding race, all the way to members detailing various rape or murder fantasies that they've had about women that they've seen in public, at work, at school, or in the bus, to suicide letters. So now that the base is out of the way, I want to give a few disclaimers on a few things. First, the goal of this research is by no means to further stigmatize this community, at least not in a way that would expand the exposure of what is already publicly available to all. Through many conversations I've had, it's become very clear to me that a lot of people, and by people, I mean men, are very insistent on the idea that the troubles these men have and deal with are real. And I actually really agree with this. Mental illness issues and feelings of loneliness are very real. I mean, my Instagram username used to literally be Lonely Alley for a reason. So I understand people dealing with these types of things. However, I want to make it very clear that the content I'm using is public information that has been posted freely online, and specifically that this research looks at their online presence. But now obviously is the part where I say that not all incels are physically violent, and some members do actually disagree with the mass killing of people and women specifically also. However, when I conduct research on the data available on a forum and I collect 100 comments that have racist and misogynistic points, that then becomes a part of our global understanding of this community's online presence. In other words, I have heard the not all incels argument many times. And again, while I'm not 100% close to the idea that not all incels are racist or even misogynist, their online presence speak for itself. And that is what I study at the end of the day, not the whispered, nice, and tolerant comments that they tell themselves in their head. When researchers say that the incel community is racist and misogynist, these conclusions come from the content that they themselves publish online and what they say in interviews, for example. I will be censoring a lot of vulgar language and slurs for obvious reasons, but I want to make it clear that once we get the finding, this will take a much darker turn. And so make sure you're not sensitive to this type of content, or at least that you're having a good day to hear about these types of things. I myself am a very sensitive person. And so, and this is also something I can touch on if anyone is interested, but how to maintain like good self-care and like mental self-care when you research topics that are that heavy, because that is definitely not something that you're taught in school. So yeah, let me know. Now, in terms of my overall goals when it comes to this research, I have a few. One of them is to solidify and deepen our knowledge on the construction of Black masculinity in the incel community, obviously, but also deepen our overall understanding of the place that race plays in this community. I think it is a mistake to assume that Black men and boys are not vulnerable to falling into this radicalization pipeline, and especially when we're talking about incels. One thing that's been made very clear to me in the many conversations I've had with many different types of people is that there is this preconceived notion that incels are all white teenage boys, and that could not be further from the truth. The data that we have currently about the ethnic makeup of this community is obviously not 100% certain, but rolls around the 55% mark versus 45%. So what that means is that, yes, a good portion of this community, the majority of this community, is young white men. However, a significant minority, again, about 45%, are racialized men and boys. Now, we obviously don't have the specific numbers when it comes to Black men and boys specifically, but to believe that they are not a part of this community at all is not only inaccurate, but also dangerous, because that then makes them vulnerable to be radicalized in silence. We have seen incel mass killings happen at the hands of white and Asian perpetrators, but none from a Black perpetrator. But I would honestly not be surprised if we saw that in the future eventually. My other objective when it comes to this research is related to the participation of Black men currently in the broader structure that is the manosphere. And what I've seen is that Black men definitely have their own corners of the internet when it comes to the manosphere and spreading patriarchal and misogynistic content. The famous example being the third most Googled person in 2023, which was Andrew Tate, who himself is half Black. Also, the late Kevin Samuels, who died in 2022. Samuels was a very loud voice in the Black manosphere, and other notable figures include the Fresh and Fit duo, Walter Weeks and Hamroo Fadol, aka Myron Gaines. Now, while these men are not incels per se, they still are part of the larger structure that is the manosphere, which includes incel communities. My last goal when it comes to this research is to try to understand why Black men join the incel community, which is undeniably racist. The incel community, as we will talk about later on, upholds probably white supremacist beliefs like the superiority of the white race. It believes in biological essentialism when it comes to race and uses racial slurs abundantly. And so I want to understand how Black men navigate and use their voices in this clearly racially hostile environment. Though I am not quite there in my research yet, there is a sort of ostracization that occurs between Black members and others, specifically between Black members and white and Asian members. And what I specifically mean when I say ostracization is a setting aside of. Black incels are set aside specifically by white and Asian members who sometimes claim Black incels are less valid. While all forms of racism and anti-Semitism are rampant on incel forums, the specific hypersexualization and anti-Blackness projected onto Black men by non-Black members is tightly linked with the place that Black members get to take in that community. For that reason, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years we saw a group of Black incels specifically branch out of the community as we understand it now. All right, so that was it for today. I really hope that this was interesting. If you have any questions or comments on how I can improve this format or points that you would like me to touch on next, feel free to let me know and I will do my best to incorporate everything. Thank you for watching and take care. Bye.